There we go. So now we're starting to record our third Designation Discourse chat session. And thank you for that question, Crystal. Appreciate it. Who else? Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, well, my name is Celinda, and I'm here in Escambia County, Pensacola, Florida. My question is kind of basically about these case study exams and how would you study for them. And I'm currently pursuing my RES designation. And after that, I'm hoping to move on to the MAS, but one step at a time. Are there any type of practice exams for the case studies and the master exams and such?
Well, I'll jump in and do the boring part of the response first, kind of the nuts and bolts of it. For case studies, yes, that comes to those workshops that Rhonda was talking about, the case study prep workshops. Those go through about 2 days of material review and kind of get you acclimated with the content of what's might be on the exam. And then at the end, that last half day is a practice exam. And those exams are not really meant to be a small representation of the entire exam. It kind of gives you a portion of it. But the case study exam it's really a different animal from most exams. It's not like a regular course exam, because you're going to receive 2 booklets. One's a question booklet, one's a data booklet. And the data booklet is in a narrative format. So it lays forth a narrative case and gives all the data you need to answer most of the questions in that question booklet. So you'll read through about 10 pages of narrative and pull information out of that and use that to answer the questions. So that's a very different testing environment to go through. So we want that workshop kind of gives you that half day of practice of going back and forth between those 2 booklets and trying to find what you need and pulling it out and applying it to answering those questions. So it's a little bit about review, a little bit about kind of getting used to that different testing environment. So that's what those are about. For the master exams, there is no official review other than studying the student reference manuals, the course manuals that come with each course, all the chapter review exercises in there, the quizzes that come throughout at different points throughout the course. Just go back and study those. Historically, the committee has seen the master exam as more of just a general overview or just a review of the overall material. They're not designed to trip anybody up, just a simple review. So they haven't put a high priority on creating specific review courses for those. So that's the technical part of it, but I'll let those actually have a designation and jump in and talk about kind of the preparation and study part of it. Don't all go at once. Anyone on the panel?
I'll jump in. I think
Thank you, Brad.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, Jaron just gave you the nuts and bolts, and the 851 is the course that you would need to take. I think that course is invaluable in the sense that it gives you, well, let me say 2 things. I think it's invaluable that the courses exist because it does give you those kind of a general idea of what to expect. Now, with that said, some of what the designation program is about is self-study, and you have to kind of you got to want it. And so I think that you take what you get in that course in those 2 days. That's not going to prepare you for the exam. I think a lot of people go into those courses thinking that in 2 days I'm going to be ready to go sit for my case study and be ready to run. That's really not the way it goes. I would suggest going through that course, getting that material, and then going over and over and over those problems that are within that. The advice I got was to study that material and know how to do those problems frontwards and backwards. And so I think if you can do that, because you're going to elicit a lot of questions in your own mind if you go through those problems over and over. We see a lot of folks, I've personally know folks who have been in this business for a long time. They're very bright individuals, but they kind of discounted how tough the exam was going to be. I always tell people, I don't ever want to discount that. It is a tough exam, regardless if you've been in the business for 20 years and have a multitude of experience. You still got to put in some time to that studying effort because the exam's challenging. But yeah, taking the course and then spending a lot of quality time afterwards just on your own. I spent, and I'm a little slower than others for sure, but I spent about a couple months once I took that exam every day, just kind of every day I would spend a little bit of time looking through that material because I didn't. And the other part of that, the exam is 8 hours. And trust me when I tell you, you do not want to take it twice. A lot of people do. But I know when I got up from after 8 hour session, I looked at the person who was taking care of me that day in the exam. And I said, I'll never do this again. If I pass it, fine. If I fail it, fine. But I'm not doing this again because that's a long exam. So anyways, just be prepared is the best advice. I know that's simplistic, but that's the best advice.
Well, thank you.
All right, sounds like we can move on to our next question. Who has a question for us next?
Hi, I'm Marcus Sager. I'm the city assessor here in Maple Grove, Minnesota. I'm looking at kind of expanding my knowledge base and through a designation. So I kind of came into the city assessor position in an accelerated track. We had a couple openings in the office, and so I have quite a bit of residential experience. But and I have my state designation for commercial, but just don't have as much on the ground experience for that. So what I'm kind of thinking, and I'd kind of like everyone's feedback on my path for designation. I'm kind of thinking to aim for that assessment administration specialist, the AAS degree or designation first as kind of an initial. I've enjoyed the kind of the assessment administration aspect of my current position, and then long term I would like to get the CAE designation. So I just want to throw that out there as a potential path toward designation, and see if anyone had any thoughts, any suggestions, or anything like that. I appreciate it.
Good deal. Thank you, Marcus. So anyone from our panel want to address that?
I will. I would say that there's no real proper order to go in as far as getting a designation, whether one before the other. There are various experience requirements, and I looked at Jaron when I say this, but I believe the AAS requires 3 years of experience, where the CAE is 5. Is that correct? I'm seeing a head nod, so at least I'm quoting that correctly. But yeah, I mean, that order as far as going AAS and then CAE, there's nothing wrong with that. And frankly, if you've got 5 years experience or more, if you did them in the other order, I don't think there would be a drastic difference either. Some of the courses that are required for both of those do overlap. In fact, for most of the designations, some of the courses overlap, with exception maybe to some of the personal property and then the CMS as well. But yeah, either order is fine. I would say maybe gear it towards what you're currently working on in your office and what's your most suitable role right now in your office. And if it's management and administration, then yeah, AAS might be the most applicable to start out with.
Thank you.
All right, don't be shy. Any other questions? Who wants to jump in?
Yes, I have another question.
Sure, Crystal.
Hi, but taking the classes and the tests, I've noticed that, those that I don't get 100% on, it doesn't tell us which ones we got wrong. At least I don't see it, or is there any way to correct that? It's like, I want to know what I got right and what I got wrong. So
Is it on the courses, Crystal, is that right?
yes.
Yes, so that is available upon request. So at the
Okay.
end of the course, if you I'm blanking exactly on the direct email, but if you email education@iwao.org, you can, I think it's called a subtest report. But you don't have to get in that much detail. Just let them know that, hey, I took this course and I'd like to know what I got right and which ones I missed. So
Oh,
that is
wonderful.
available in the courses. We don't do that on designation exams, but the course exams, that is available. So
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Jaren, while we're waiting on other questions to trickle in, can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
I would just say that, you know, if you're considering a designation, if you have applied for your candidacy, one of the benefits of being a candidate is having a professional designation advisor, PDA for short. When you're eligible for that, you can then go into your profile under IAAO Connect and see the list of the professional designation advisors for the designation that you are looking to achieve. And it'll indicate in there if those advisors are taking on new candidates to help mentor through the designation process. So I would definitely encourage those, if you're a candidate, to seek that out if you haven't already. If you have an advisor that you haven't communicated with recently, certainly reach out to them. You know, if it's not a good fit, I think it's not too difficult to change advisors. And I think most would be open to that in order to help facilitate, you know, earning the designation quicker. So definitely look into that option for those that are currently candidates. And if you're considering becoming a candidate, professional designation advisor can go a long way in answering a lot of the questions that we're discussing here today, but certainly they can help get down into the meat and potatoes of specific questions, or you know, a specific topic that may be an item of struggle or something like that, and they can help out with that.
Good point. Thank you.
Mhm.
And with that, we do have one question that came in about workshop 151 needed for their PPS designation, and looking at taking it through McKissick, but if anybody else knows of one coming up before September 2023 online, or if there's a substitute. So I know I've addressed this a little bit earlier as well, not during this workshop, but we've corresponded about this before a little bit. So I'll let the panel jump in here if they like to. But as far as IAAO goes, we don't have any directly scheduled ourselves directly from us. We do provide some courses directly online from us and the region instructor. That doesn't mean that while I'm sitting here talking right now, we're not getting an application downstairs saying that somebody in Arizona is going to host one in a month. So that will be added to our calendar. So that's one thing about our courses, is make sure you check the course calendar frequently, because as we get those applications in from those local coordinators, if they want us to advertise the course, and a great majority of them do, we'll add that to the calendar that becomes publicly available to search through and see what's coming up as far as workshops go. And so we might have some coordinators out there that have some on there right now. And I think, oh, yep. Thank you, Jason. Jason just put one up from on our learning platform, Learn. That's coming up as an option. And for those that are in a hurry, I usually do mention McKissick.com, because they are the, I don't want to say the official provider, but they are the sanction provider from the Appraisal Foundation to provide USTAP online. So they do we offer ours in a live online format, which means it's scheduled for a certain day, or I guess 2 days, having 2 days. So it's scheduled on a calendar. McKissick is, I think, the only one, or one of the very few, that offers it on an on-demand basis. So you can register for the USPAP through them and take it on demand through them. So that is an option too, because it's not directly our course. It's not an IAAO course, but a course of the Appraisal Foundation. As long as that course is completed through a provider that's approved by the Appraisal Foundation, we accept that from other providers as well. So that is the course that's required for designation that we can accept from other providers. Anyone else want to jump in on USPAP? I know it's a fun topic.
It is a fun topic. I'll jump in to add a question / comment. We always have fee appraisers that end up in our profession, and one of the items to get licensed as a fee appraiser is to complete the 15-hour USPAP course. Jaron, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that there is an expiration date on that 15-hour USPAP completion. So if a licensed appraiser has been in the field for 20 years and didn't last took it in 1999, the IAAO does still honor that in regards to applying for a designation. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. So yeah, there's no expiration as far as we're concerned on that, as long as it was completed at some point in the past. We just need some proof of completion of that to have on file. So we do all of our records especially when it comes to that, can be audited by the Appraisal Foundation. We turn in, I think, biannual reports to them of how we're doing on compliance with USPAP, those kind of things. So we need to have that on file. I will say that's the optimum of what we need on file. I will say that in limited circumstances that, the one that took it back in 1999 and, who hangs on to their completion certificate that long might not have that. But if they've been licensed since then in a state, we can assume from a state license that is required to hold the state license. So we can take proof of that state appraisal license as also having proof of completed the 15-hour USPAP if needed. So.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, so I have a question on the AAS. I've been putting it off for years and hadn't done it. So how many people, as far as the case study, do case study versus the other two options?
I don't want to sound like I'm overestimating, but 100%.
Okay. All right.
I had one evaluation of his jurisdiction's practices on my desk when I started 8 years ago. That's something they turned in that I needed to have graded when I first started. I have not seen one since.
I don't know of anybody that's done the other option. I'm not aware. I mean, it could be, but I'm not aware I've ever heard anybody.
I know of one person that did, and she's retired now. So it was quite a while back.
Yeah, and I'll describe the options a little bit for those that don't know. So the AAS has 3 project options. One of them is, of course, as we're going to be talking about, the case study examination. So that's on assessment administration. So that counts as a project option. You can also do a research paper. This has to be, but kind of like with the catches there, it's pretty serious. It has to be able to be published in the journal. So it needs to be journal quality research paper. So many people shy away from that because they're not researchers of that level and don't want to get into that much detail. And the one that Jason was referring to is evaluating your office's or another office's assessment practices and writing a report on it. And with that project, you use the same publication that the people that go for the CEAA, the Certificate of Excellence in Assessment Administration. So the office level or designation. So an entire team completes that report. Sometimes takes them a year or more to write that report as a team and turn it in. As a designee, or a designation candidate, you'd be doing that report by yourself. And then at the end of that report, to sum it up, you have to find 3 areas of improvement and write about those, why you recommend those for improvement, and also explain your plan of how you would improve those practices within the office you evaluated. So it is a very, very large undertaking for an individual to do that. So therefore we get down to pretty much 100% of people choosing the case study exam. Did I answer the question, Jason?
Yeah, that's what I needed to know.
All right, excellent. All right, I'm checking chat here again, but yeah, if you have one you're willing to vocalize, feel free to. And we also understand that I think I'm also one of those people that I'll join a session like this, but I necessarily won't speak up. But I want to learn from others and others' questions. So that is perfectly fine as well. If you're absorbing or don't have a question to ask, we understand. But yeah, feel free to jump in if you have a question. You can enter it here in the chat or ask it live as well. All right, so Kevin asked about workshop 852, which is the review course for the case exam for the AAS. Seeing that there aren't any currently on the calendar, and there's a secondary source. And the answer to that would be yes, in kind of a self-study format. So I think Rhonda said this earlier that she was looking for the PPS workshop, couldn't find it. So she just ordered the course materials. That is a good option if that's a way you're comfortable learning in that manner. Because basically when you order that through our website, you'll be sent the exact workbook and course manual that you received if you were signed up for the course or the workshop and were sitting in the classroom with that. So you get all the workshop materials, the quizzes, exercises, and that at the end, that practice exam along with the solutions. So you get everything. It's, the only downside is it's not instructor led and you got to lead yourself through it. But I know some folks that have been looking for a workshop for a while and it's just not coming up on the calendar. They decide to go ahead and do that and order it directly and study that way to prepare for the exam. Does anybody on the panel want to talk to that experience a little more as far as going through it yourselves?
I would just say that's exactly how I did it. I couldn't find a course when I was ready to do the RES, and so I got the materials and went through them on my own. So I think it can work. I think that's probably something that we as instructors need to look to better at those to make sure that those are available as we try to promote this designation program for the IAAO, to have those available. So myself included in that comment. So. But yeah, it works all the same because once again, you still have to put in that time. And then if I did have questions, I reached out to those around me that either already had those designations or that were much brighter than I am. So that worked that way.
Yeah, I think it also depends on you as a person and your study habits and your commitment. So, there's some people that just learn better in a group setting because you hear what others say. People ask questions that you might not think about asking. So I think both ways work best. I mean, will work great. I think it probably also depends on the individual and how well they. Because if you're doing that self-study, you have to make yourself focus and read and make sure to practice the problems, and you have to reach out to others if you don't understand something or have questions. You have to make sure that you follow up with that. So I guess it just depends on the person too.
Yeah, I think Brad and Tina both make very good points. And Brad, I kind of followed in your footsteps. I got the material for both the RES and the AAS, and I just studied both of those workbooks heavily. And I actually would go through and use the practice exams, and I would do everything on blank paper. So I could use the practice exams over and over and over again without having my answers written on there or anything like that. And so that really helped to master those practice exams, because I had the art of repetition of taking them and going through the mathematical processes or making sure that I knew the terminology really well. So yeah, those two items, to me, I think the material itself is invaluable to helping to pass those exams.
I actually took the workshops in both, well, not the PPS, because the PPS workshop didn't exist to the level it does today when I haven't got my PPS but I did the AAS workshop. And scheduled my case study shortly thereafter while it was fresh on my mind. So I think that was helpful for me.
All good points. Thank you all for sharing that. Crystal asked if the formulas are provided on the case study and master exams. Sounds like a technical question, so I'll hit that real fast. No, they are not. I know several years ago, the education committee decided to provide those with the course exams, and the same issue was brought to the professional development committee at the same time, which oversees the designation program. And by consensus, they fully agreed that they believe the designation signifies a mastery of the material to earn a designation. So they are not comfortable adding that to the designation exams as they do at the course exams. So currently the formulas are not provided on case and master exams.
Do the case exams also include questions from the course, the core course material as well?
I got talking. Yep, I got to talk again. Okay. No. Yes. So out of those questions that come on the exam, I would say probably half or a little more come from the narrative or data booklet itself and are directly related to the case. But sprinkled in there are general knowledge type questions from the course materials as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So as people are thinking of questions, does anybody from the panel want to share a little more about their designation journey or how they've found their designation helpful in their career, or any tidbits and broad advice you want to share to those looking at earning a designation?
Jaren, I can share a little bit in regards to maybe both designations. On the AAS, when I achieved that, I was at the time in a supervisor's position, and it did just help broaden my knowledge. It's different from, I got knowledge from the courses, but having to prepare and review those courses separately for the designation, it actually pulled things together and provided a broader concept. So I felt like I had gained more knowledge just from preparing and achieving the AAS. For the PPS designation, I support all 95 counties in Tennessee, and the main benefit that I see with that designation is when taxpayers are filing, and it's very common now, especially prior to COVID, but especially now after COVID, for taxpayers to ask for economic obsolescence. And they're just trying to lower, the reps are trying to lower their tax liability of their client. So because of the process, because of the deep dive into each class that was required for the designation, I can better support my counties in reviewing what taxpayers send them to request for a non-standard value. I can point out and tell them they did the math wrong. They can't double dip on this. This is not justified. So it has allowed me knowledge to help my county. So anybody that goes toward the designation and achieves it, is they're just gaining more knowledge that they can utilize in their day-to-day work, whether they're supporting individual counties or just taking care of their own county.
Very good. Thank you, Rhonda. Does anyone else in the panel want to share, or do we have any other questions that are lingering that you want to ask? I see we're at 10:45, so we do have more time, but we don't have to go for an hour. So our main objective is just to be available to you. So I don't want to cut off anybody short if you still have questions, but we're also not going to just push to fill an hour either. So.
Which is the most popular designation?
That's a good question.
I think Jaren could probably answer how many
Question?
are out there as far as those go. I think I would argue either the RES or the AAS is the most popular at this point, but may not have been 10 or 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's certainly true as far as current like new candidates go, and designations we're awarding. Those two are growing the fastest, I believe. So it's a little skewed because I think, we think about the CAE is our top designation, but it's also been around since 1952. And I think last month we just awarded like 1,252. So number 1252 went out for the CAE. And of course, they're not all active. I would hope somebody that earned it in the 50s is long since retired or otherwise. So, but we do have quite a few. I think there are still around 250 active CAE designees, but there are more so of RES and AAS. I think they both hover at around 350 to 400, somewhere in there. Lesser active designees right now are within the PPS and CMS categories. I think the PPS still has fewer than 100 awarded since it started in the 90s, but it's actually been more popular lately. We've seen more candidates the past probably year and a half than I've seen in my 8 years here. I think it's a good sign. So it's that the numbers creeping up there pretty fast. And then CMS comes in waves. I don't know if you have taken mapping courses, but if you have taken a course on Rick Norieco, he is good about shepherding CMS candidates through, and he'll personally work to make sure he gets a class of 4, 5, 6, 7 through at a time from courses he's taught, and kind of get them together and encourage them to apply for candidacy. So that's slower takes up as well. But you kind of think about it, there also are very more focused, tailored specialty type designations. So automatically they're going to have a smaller population that are interested in them and or qualify for them just based on how focused they are. So that makes sense. So I think just based on the roles people have within their offices and what they're interested in doing, they're all fairly strong, but I think, the RES and AAS have a lot more like popular broad appeal. And I've got another question is that took 101 and 102 several years ago. Would you recommend that I take them again as a refresher? Anyone on the panel want to take that?
I don't mind taking that one. Crystal, if it has been many years, especially if you're talking 7 to 10 years, I would suggest retaking the courses. I feel like those are core classes for all of the designations. At a bare minimal, if you cannot attend in person or virtually for a course, I would recommend pulling out your book or purchasing a new book and do a self-study on your own front to back of the course.
Well put. Thank you, Rhonda. And I just mentioned that both of those courses have been updated by the Education Committee and staff in the past 3 years, I believe. And 101 is on the timeline to be updated again, new release often for tentatively slated for next year. So it's to be updated again. Thanks for joining us, Marcus. Appreciate it. Marcus is off. Bye-bye. Off with his day.
About 101 and 102, they've both been rewritten recently, haven't they? 101 has. Yeah,
Yes.
so that's another reason I would suggest taking it, because they've also been rewritten.
Yes, both those in the past, with the past 3 years. So yeah, it's refreshed content, not a lot of the actual base knowledge changes within those, but how it's presented, what the focus areas are, those kind of things, those do change over time. Well, with that, I think we'll conclude unless somebody has a burning question that they just haven't had that chance to ask yet. I've seen some shakes of nose, so okay.
I just want to say thank you. This is fabulous, extremely helpful. Thank you so much.
We're definitely glad to do it and glad to make this available. And some good things had to come from having Zoom in our lives more now. And we thought this is a natural outgrowth of doing these. I think in the past, we've done them about once a year at conference. For those that are able to make conference, that's a very limited availability. And we thought this would be a good way to get these out there and do these on a more regular basis and make them accessible to everybody who doesn't have the means to travel to conference in whatever manner, if it's resource wise or whatnot. So yeah, I just want to be making these available to folks so they have a chance to ask the questions and understand the process better, and overall is understand that yes, it is a lofty goal, but it is quite achievable. Any
Well,
parting? Oh, go ahead, Cindy.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say thank you and thank the panel for taking the time out to answer our questions. I know you've heard these questions many, many, many times, but thank you again. It does make me feel better to know that there is somebody I can reach out to. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Any parting word from panelists?
Thanks for attending, and thanks for asking questions, and hopefully the panel provided some great answers that will be resourceful in the future.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So, well, thank you all for joining us. Like I say, feel free to follow up. I know several of our panelists shared their information within the chat section here of how to contact them. Kevin mentioned the PDA program too. Once you're a candidate, or if you are a candidate, that's accessible to you. Then also, we're Rachel here at the office at designations@iwao.org. So that's what we're here for, is help get you through the process and help you achieve your goal. With that, I think we will conclude. So thank you all for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.